So guys, you all know the Bipan Chandra history is a most essential book for civil services. You can call it as a Bible of civil service. We everyone must have to read this book to gain a supremacy over modern history. Okay, but the thing is that the book is very conceptual book. Okay, most of the students generally find it difficult to catch the idea of the book. That's why in this lecture here I have tried to give a little interpretation or little idea how to read the book. What are the things you have to keep in front of you while reading the book? If you read this book in a topic wise, or if you read this book keeping in view of these topics, then I think it will be little helpful for you to complete the book, to conceptualize the book. Okay, right. The first topic is the constitutional development. That while reading the book from the first chapter to the last chapter, you have to view or you have to see, that means how each stage of national freedom struggle, how each agenda of Congress, how each work of Congress, okay, not only Congress, whether it is Socialist Party, whether it is Extremist Party, whether it is Revolutionary Party, okay, how the activities of each one have contributed to the constitutional development process. Or you have to see how the Indian constitution derives its characters or teenage from Indian freedom struggle. Means what is the role of national freedom struggle to the making of Indian constitution, how it derives its elements, how Indian constitution derives its elements from Indian freedom struggle. You write from the 1905 to 1947, you have to examine the constitutional development in each stage. In my last lecture of chapter 5 of Bipan Chandra, I have pointed out some things, that how there are some democratic elements of National Congress we have found in 1905 and how they contributed to the development of constitutional making process. So some points we have to examine in case of constitutional development means elements of democracy, representative of minority, secularism, method of election, Congress agenda, Nehru report, etc., representative democracy. How these elements are reflected in Indian national freedom struggle and how these elements contributed to the constitutional development process. We have to examine all this while reading the book. Then another most important thing is that the Bipan Chandra history, I already told you, culture is a part of history. Culture, it will cover society, women, etc. The first paper, especially the issue of women, the women issue, we have to see the women issue also in terms of Indian freedom struggle. Means how the Indian freedom struggle actually initiated a feminist era, how it brought the women from the four boundary of home, or how it came out, how it has been able to bring the women from the restricted four walls. Okay, and what is the contribution of women to Indian freedom struggle, how it initiated a new era of women freedom. We have to examine these points in terms of Indian freedom struggle while reading this book from 1905 to 1947. Then you have to see what are the elements we have to observe. Freedom movement, is it a feminist movement? We have to examine this factor. Women and moderate, women and extremist, means women and moderate. We have to find out whether there is any woman freedom fighter who belongs to moderate group, and if there is any, then what is her contribution. Women and extremist, what is the contribution of women freedom fighter to the extremist movement? In 1942 we have found there are lots of women freedom fighters who have contributed to the extremist movement or revolutionary movement. Okay, we have to examine this. Then after then you see that women and extremism, women and moderate, women freedom movement, or feminist movement. We have to examine all these points right from the 1905 to 1942, means in each stage, in 1905, 1921, 1931 and 1942, how in each stage we have seen or we have found the development of women freedom, or the active participation of women in terms of revolutionary, in terms of extremist, and in terms of moderate to Indian freedom struggle. And we have to also examine what is its influence and what is its contribution to the post-independence women freedom movement. We have to examine all these points while reading the Bipan Chandra book. Then you say literature. Literature is a part of the first paper. It is a topic of first paper, and literature is a very integral part of Indian freedom struggle. Then we have to examine this topic in terms of different stages of freedom movement. And while we read the book Bipan Chandra, we have to always keep this point, keep this literature, keep this topic literature. Okay, we have to examine how literature contributed to Indian freedom struggle. Then literature is what? Moderate literature and extremist literature. Moderate literature, extremist literature, Marxian literature, women and literature, socialist literature, partisan literature, Indian press, Indian newspaper. These are all the elements of literature, and you will find different example of this kind of literature in every chapter of Bipan Chandra. Okay, whenever you find a name of any book, okay, like Nil Darpan, Dinabandhu Nil Darpan, and other like Bande Mataram, okay, any song, any book, okay, you have to note that point, okay, and you have to see how what is the background of this literature, how it contributed to the Indian freedom struggle. You have to see all these things while reading the book. Okay, what is the contribution of women to literature? What is women literature? Marxian literature and socialist literature means the literature, the book like Philosophy of Bomb. Philosophy of Bomb. Okay, we have found a Philosophy of Bomb or written by Rasbihari Ghosh. Okay, then how they contributed to the Indian freedom struggle, what is their role, okay, and what is partisan literature? Partisan literature means we know that in 1947 during the time of partition a lot of violence occurred. Okay, then many poems and books, novels are written on this taking this partition as a central theme. We have to examine this also, the partition and its contribution to literature, Indian literature, and as well as Indian freedom struggle. What is the role of Indian press? What is the role of Indian newspaper? Okay, we have to examine all these things together. Then after this, that you see communalism. Now communalism is a very burning topic. Okay, then we have to examine right from the 1905 to 1947 that how communalism came into prominence. Who is responsible for communalism? Is it Congress or is it Muslim League? Okay, or is it Indian people? Okay, we have to examine what are the factors that contributed to the growth of communalism in India. What are the Congress policies? Is any Congress policy responsible for communalism? Is any work of extremist party responsible for growth of communalism? And how the British policy used this communalism? Okay, how the British policy used this communalism as a tool, okay, to retain its rule. We have to examine all these things, and while examining communalism, we have to see that right from the 1905 to 1942, it actually develops, origins, grows and develops. Okay, right from 1905 to 1942, what is the circle of communalism and what is its relation in Indian freedom struggle? What is its role? Okay, we have to examine all these factors while reading the book. Then another topic we have to keep in mind while reading the book is industrial policy. That means industrial policy means the birth of the trade union. Birth of the trade union, its growth, its development, and its contribution to Indian freedom struggle. And what is the relation between socialism and trade union? How socialism contributed to the birth of trade union, and what is the role of Congress in trade union, in the growth of trade union? Whether Congress accepted the trade union, or to what extent Congress permitted the entry of trade union, or what extent Congress accepted the ideology of trade union and permitted it to the entry of mainstream nationalist movement. We have to examine all these factors, means trade union and its relation with socialism, trade union and its relation with Congress, acceptance or disapproval of Congress to this trade union policy. Okay, we have to examine all these factors while reading the book Bipan Chandra. Okay, and Here another thing is we have to we have to examine regarding the Indian freedom struggle, that communist movement, that what is the relation between communist movement and trade union, and what is its role to Indian freedom struggle. We have to examine this factor, this aspect also. Then another thing is that Gandhi and non-violence. Gandhi and non-violence. That means one, non-violence is the soul of Indian freedom struggle. Okay, but we have to see that how non-violence actually grows, develop, and matured in the different phases of Indian freedom struggle. Right from the arrival of Gandhi to the 1947, we have to examine the factor of non-violence and its contribution to the nationalist freedom struggle. We can view, or we can examine it in three different stages: 1921, 1931, and 1942. We have to examine these stages in terms of non-violence and its contribution to Indian freedom struggle. Then you see social reform movement. Actually the social reform movement is a very important topic. That how the topic is important, we have to first see that no social reform in Congress agenda during the initial period. Why social reform, why the Congress in its initial period did not take this social reform in its agenda. Okay, we have to examine this thing. Then social reform and nationalism, then how with the arrival of Gandhi or with the arrival of other nationalist leaders, social reform movement came into the agenda of Congress, and how it actually how it developed or how it contributed to the Indian nationalism, how it contributed to the national unity. Then we have to see social reform and women empowerment. Okay, then what is the role of social reform movement to women empowerment? We have to see, we have to examine this point also. And what is the contribution of British to the social reform movement? How the British played a role, crucial role in social reform movement. Okay, and how the social reform movement is related to westernization. What are the elements which social reform movement accepted from Western ideologies, and what are its impact? We have to examine this thing while reading this topic from Bipan Chandra book. Then another thing you have to mention, we have to view then topic which we have to examine, it is nationalism. Though while reading the whole book, we have to examine that what is the origin, growth, and development of nationalism. What is the how nationalism developed right from the 1857 to 1947, how it growed, how it developed, and what is the role of revolutionary party, what is the role of extremists, what is the role of moderate, what is the role of socialist, and what is the role of communist to the growth of nationalism, and how they contributed to the growth of Indian freedom struggle, and what are the policies and laws of British to counter this nationalism. And in these policies and laws, that we have to examine different law, different act, right from the 1909 Parliamentary Reform, okay, Communal Award, Simon Commission, okay, we have to develop, we have to see all these things, okay, we have to examine all the laws, 1992, 1909, 1999, okay, after that Simon Commission, Government of India Act. We have to examine all these laws and acts of British government and how they have been used to counter the effect of nationalism, whether it is to counter the effect of moderate, whether it is to counter the effect of communist, whether it is to counter the effect of socialist. Okay, we have to see how they contributed to the how these British used these policies to counter the effect of nationalism. Okay, and we can also examine one aspect, how each I mentioned the constitutional development, that how Congress policies and agenda contributed to the constitutional development. And here you can see also how these policies and how these policies and laws which British brought to counter the effect of nationalism, and how they contributed to the constitutional development of India. Is there any elements Indian constitution has adopted from these laws? We have to examine this thing also. Okay, that is why social reform and nationalism, these two topics we have to keep in mind while reading the book Bipan Chandra. And one thing I forgot to mention in case of nationalism, we have to examine another factor, the growth of nationalism in princely states also. Okay, then what is the impact of nationalism in princely state? Whether princely state equally responded to the call of nationalism or not. We have to examine this thing also. Okay, now you see another thing, peasant movement. We have to see the tribal uprising and peasant movement examined right from 1857 to 1957. We have to compare and contrast the peasant movement that happened between before 1857 and after 1857. Peasant movement in princely state, peasant movement before 1932 and after 1942. What are the similarities and what are the differences? Comparison of peasant movement before 1942 and comparison of peasant movement after 1942. What is the contribution of peasant movement to national struggle? We have to examine all these factors, means as a whole peasant movement. Okay, what is its role to Indian freedom struggle? So what are the topics I have mentioned here? That you see, it is very difficult to make a concise note on freedom struggle. It is still keeping view of the concern of the students, the concern of the beginners. I have here tried to bring out some topics which you have to keep in mind while reading the book Bipan Chandra. And the topics are: number 1, constitutional development; number 2, literature; number 3, communalism; number 4, women; number 5, industrial policy; number 6, Gandhian non-violence; number 7, social reform; number 8, nationalism; and number 9, peasant movement. Hope while reading the book Bipan Chandra you will give this you keep this topic in front of you and examine examine this topic in terms of different phases of Indian freedom struggle. I hope you will helpful by this lecture, and don't forget to put your comment in the comment box. Till then, take care. Bye bye. I will meet you in the next lecture. Thank you.